Hello everyone, Sam here. We continue to consider the consequences of a possible strike on Earth by a huge asteroid with a diameter of hundreds of kilometers in the distant or not too distant past. In the last part, we analyzed the first hours after the impact of fragments of an asteroid into different parts of the Earth. Now we will delve a little deeper into the theory since we have only covered the general positions, but far from all. For this, we will look at the situation under a slightly different angle from the perspective of a sentient civilization living on Earth at that time. So we know that a celestial body will fall to Earth. Yes, not one, but 3 at once, and maybe even 4 or more. Our future actions will depend not only on our level of development, but primarily on the deadlines given to us for solving the problem. And to prevent getting lost in the wilds of fantasy, we will periodically check in with our current civilization. The first thing we need to do is understand the scale and assess the nature of the damage. Is it even worth doing anything? Maybe there's no point, we will all die anyway, or maybe there's something we can do. If the meteorite was noticed only recently and there is no time to respond, or very little, for example, a few days, then no, they didn't guess. We will not be notifying the public about the threat. In fact, we won't be doing anything at all because it's too late. Don't you believe me? Let's check. On the 15th of April in the year 2018, at a distance of only 198,000 kilometers away from Earth, the asteroid 2018 flew by. The estimated dimensions are around 100 meters in diameter. That's 3 times bigger than the Tunguska meteorite and almost 10 times bigger than Chelyabinsk's. Moreover, it's bigger in diameter because by mass it was approximately 17 times larger than the Tunguska one. Has anyone heard a warning? Was anyone alerted? No, they only told about it the next day, and even then quietly. And in the event of such a rock falling, suppose on Berlin, the crow's crater would have been a quarter of the city, the airstrike would have wiped out a quarter of Germany, the fireball from the explosion would have been seen on the shore of the Baltic Sea, and the seismic shock would have traveled from Switzerland to Sweden. And nobody warned anyone. Another similar stone flew twice as close on November 9th, 2017. Its number is 2017. And again, everyone relied on the suddenness of its appearance, and no one was warned. On September 2nd, 2016 asteroid 2016 flew by. It passed even closer, 77,000 kilometers away. It was noticed on the 28th of August, that is, 4 days before its flyby, but they only reported it after the flyby. Now it's clear how the authorities will behave. Not at all. This list can go on and on. The main thing is if there's no time to react, no one will report anything. But according to our calculations, there was time, and there was plenty of it, although limited. So, we need to use it to the maximum, right? Our civilization also has its own answer to this. Underground bunkers for loved ones and nuclear missiles. But if we are a more advanced civilization, then we will be preparing. Let's immediately remove from the calculations the mega-fantastic versions about magic beams, gravity converters, and even nuclear missiles. Well, simply because no number of nuclear missiles will stop an asteroid 400 kilometers in diameter. And I know nothing about magic beams and gravity converters. Well, we, more grounded beings, will therefore prepare us for military action against an enemy who knows neither mercy nor compromise. First of all, we calculate the effects by time and nature of the impact. Calculate the fall points in relatively safe places. At every moment of this war with the asteroid, the safe places will be different and will look differently. That is, We need to plan out a comprehensive long-term complex of measures of resistance, a deeply echeloned defense, and a recovery plan. The first, most powerful strike will be from the airwave, but almost simultaneously with it will come the seismic shock. This means that we need to construct shelters in select locations for future survivors and protect them from these first strikes. Correct. The protective structures must withstand both an aerial strike and a seismic one. To withstand the aerial strike, deflective ramps are needed, and to withstand the seismic polygonal laying is needed. In this case, the Sacsayhuaman Fortress is a perfect example. But it is entirely possible that other fortress stars, of which there are so many on Earth, could serve a similar role. By the way, in this case, the track of Bajov is very curious. In his tales, he never calls them Christian fortresses, but always says that they are in the fortress. What am I driving at? To the fact that, in my view, ancient magnificent temples, basilicas, and other structures, on the one hand, and megalithic constructions like Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, Egyptian and Mexican pyramids, all sorts of dolmens on the other, are buildings of one civilization. Yes, as strange as it may sound. And here's my argument. Look, this is a building built by our civilization, and this, and this, and this. And our civilization has built this. This here. And this. We built all of this approximately in the same period of time. But the purpose of the buildings is different. In one case, we build to live and enjoy the beauty. In the other, to withstand the most powerful blows. Here we don't need to worry about beauty, only about the strength of the structure and the accuracy of the angles. Also, as indirect evidence, the so-called saw marks and other marks of inaccurate work are particularly attributed to megalithic creations. This also suggests that the creators of these works were in a hurry. That is, time was limited. Neither the level of technology gave them the opportunity to make it beautiful due to the lack of time, but also the futility of decoration. The creation should have been destroyed in any case to save people's lives. And what about the legends of the mega tsunami and the global flood, the nuclear war at the end of times? Well, first of all, one does not exclude the other. And secondly, as we've already calculated in one of the previous episodes, there could not have been a tsunami that would have swept across the entire Earth. There's simply not that much water on Earth, although local floods undoubtedly did occur. Yes, what to say, we are still living in flood conditions. An enormous amount of ancient cities are underwater. But let's try to study what the difference is between destruction from tsunamis, war, and earthquakes. Look at the tsunamis. Here are the aftermath of bombings, nuclear bombings, and here are the aftermath of earthquakes. In all cases, the destructions are absolutely wild. However, something can still be understood. At least there is one decisive difference. Tsunamis, unlike all others, apply a long-term and large force to the entire structure altogether. That's why during tsunamis, light wooden or plastic buildings are often completely washed away. However, stone, concrete, and reinforced concrete structures are virtually unaffected, even if covered by the wave completely. Here's a very vivid illustration. Here, the tsunami covered the building at least 1.5 to 2 meters above the roof, and even brought a boat to the homeowner. In other words, ancient stone buildings would never have been destroyed by a flood or tsunami. So, it's either a bombing or an earthquake. How to determine? Because they are so similar, aren't they? And it is in this that ancient columns can help us. What is the difference between bombing and an earthquake? The difference lies in where and how the destructive force is applied. In the case of bombing with stone or metallic cores, the destructive force is applied in one direction. It's like you're hitting a wall with a hammer. In the case of an explosion inside a building, the destructive force is applied in different directions, but always from the epicenter of the explosion. That is, if you take a specific wall or pillar, the force will still be directed in one direction. But in the case of an earthquake, the direction of the destructive action will often change from one direction to the opposite. And here pillars can help us, more specifically, composite pillars. They consist of individual parts placed one on top of another. When a force is applied to the column, one side of the block begins to exert more pressure on the adjacent block, and the opposite side, on the contrary, rises above it. When the direction of force changes, the points of pressure and loads will also shift. Thus, along the joint seam of the column, a loaded area is formed that changes. And in case of an earthquake, when the direction of the microstroke changes very often and in different directions, such an area will be located around the entire perimeter of the block, forming just such a line, which we observe on many ancient ruins. In other words, it can be assumed with a large degree of certainty that most, if not all, ancient cities were destroyed not by war, not by tsunamis, but specifically by earthquakes. Of course, earthquakes happen just like that, even in our times. But what does any self-respecting state do after an earthquake? Of course, it saves the survivors, clears the rubble, repairs and rebuilds the destroyed buildings. However, we do not see this, and this already says that the catastrophe was global. Thus, the hypothesis of the Earth being bombarded by asteroids is getting more and more confirmation. But that's not all. These are just the first effects of such bombardment. What was supposed to happen next? More on this in the next episode. Friends, none of us are afraid of making mistakes. And if you see a flaw in my logic, don't hesitate to leave a concise, clear, and straight to the point comment under the video. To be continued. Subtitles created